Hi, this is Brent, and today we're going to continue from the last video. We've been in the Develop in Swift tutorials. We're in the data modeling section, and we've been working in models and persistence. Hold on, navigation. Here we go. So the last tutorial was navigate sample data, and in this video we're going to work on creating, updating, and deleting data. So if you followed along in the previous video, you'll have a project already called Friends Favorite Movies. If you didn't do that one, you can go ahead and just download the project files and that'll work as well. All right, let's jump to Xcode and I'm going to open the Friends Favorite Movies. And if you remember from the last time, we had we were using a tab view, and we had a friend list and a movie list, and we defined sample data so that while you're developing the application, you're able to insert data into the view. So that was strictly for the preview, meaning when you have the app up and you're looking at the content view, for example, then this data that's showing right here is specific to the preview. If you run this in the simulator, so go ahead and run this. Again, when you run for the first time, if the simulator isn't open, it'll take a minute to launch and then it'll show up. And then of course it has to install the app. But here you notice that what we're dealing with is we don't have any real data. So, in fact, there's nothing here for us to reference. So, let's go ahead and stop that and jump in. The first thing we want to do at the moment, when we click into a detail, we just see an empty screen. There's not much here. We want to create a specific detail view for our friends. So, the first thing is to right-click on the folder, click New File from Template, and we want a Swift UI view, and go ahead and choose Next, and we're going to call this Friend Detail. First thing we want to do is add a variable, and we're going to add a certain type of variable using the keyword bindable. So you use the @bindable, and then we'll say var friend of type friend. This is going to throw an error. I want to minimize the output there. It's going to throw an error because when you have a preview, it doesn't know what data to present. And so to fix that, let's jump over to the sample data. And what we want is to create a computed property that returns a value for us. So under the context, let's create another var, say var friend, whoops, lowercase, because when you lowercase, that means it's a local variable, and capital means it's a type. So this is going to return a friend, and we're going to use our friend.sampledata.first, whoops, first, and then we're going to use an exclamation point. And the reason for that is in our sample data array, it's possible that it's full of properties that are considered optionals, meaning there may not be data in this value. And so what we're doing is we're unwrapping the optional. Because we wrote the sample data and we've inserted data into it, we know that it exists. So for our purposes, we're going to unwrap it. And then because we know that it will be used, and in our case, because we're unwrapping it, this is only going to be used in the preview. So it's not going to affect the app when it's running on a device. While we're here, let's go ahead and add another computed variable that is movie, and this will return a movie. and we're going to say movie.sampleData.first, and again the exclamation point, and that's going to return the first value in the movie sample data array. Let's go back to the friend detail, and we're going to fix this error. And so what we'll do is we will pass in, because it's now expecting a value for friend, we're going to say sample data.shared.friend. And again, we're referencing the sample data that's again only used when we're in the preview, when we're developing our application. The point of the friend detail is we want to allow the person to edit the text. And so let's change this to a text field. So we say text field, and we're gonna say name for the first property, and then a comma, and then the text is going to be bound to the friend object.name. And then because we're working with names, we want to turn off autocorrect. So we'll use a modifier that says autocorrect disabled. That way, when we type in the text, we're not going to get any autocorrect errors because we're using names. When we use this, we're going to use another container, which is called a form. And so if we right click on that and we say embed, then I can embed this in a form. Now notice what happened to the UI. All of a sudden we have some now stylized. The form has a background and it's got rounded corners. And so this is a great way to leverage displaying grouped content that we're editing. You've seen that in the settings and other apps on the device. Let's do the same thing for the movie detail. So let's create a movie detail. So select the folder, right click, choose new file from template. Make sure you have SwiftUI view selected and choose next. We'll call this movie detail. We're going to do the same thing like we did with friend, but we need a property now for a bindable, and it's a var movie, as you can guess, and it is of type movie. So let's fix the error, because now it's expecting a movie. We can pass in sample data.shared.movie. Let's refresh that. Let's go ahead and do what we did before, where we create a text field. And it's going to be movie title is the text. And then we pass in we bind the text to the movie.title. So now it shows up where we passed in a sample data movie, which was the first one on the array. And now we're binding it to the title in the movie. We use bindable when we want to have SwiftUI automatically update whenever that value changes. Let's go ahead and embed this in a form. So right click on the text field, choose embed, and we say form, and we've got that there as well. In the tutorial, it says add a date picker, but then it actually doesn't show you the text for that, but let's go ahead and add that. So what we're doing is we're adding a date picker, and it's going to take some text for the title, release date, and then we say selection, and that's going to be bound to the movie.release date. And then we're going to say displayed components, we want .date. So notice what happens is we have the text here, which is release date, and then we show the date picker, which we can then choose from. But in our case, we only want to show the date, because you remember when you're using a date object, it has a time associated with it. So displayed component says just show the date. We don't want to show the time. So that makes that complete. So now we have the ability to edit the title and the release date. Now that we have our movie detail and our friend detail, let's go ahead and update the friend list and movie list so that we're showing, when we go to the detail, we're actually showing the detail view. So right now, down here in the not this detail, sorry, in the navigation link, right now we're showing text and everything. We want to change this so that we show the friend detail. So we're going to say friend detail, and it expects a friend, and we pass in the friend that was selected. And then now when we click on a friend, it goes to the detail that we just created, and it lets us edit their name. Now in the preview it doesn't show the keyboard, but if you run it in the simulator it'll show the keyboard. So now we can say, okay, we want their name to be Brent, and we can click back and it updates their name. Now at the moment this is all sample data, so if I rerun this, it's not going to keep that. We'll fix that here in a little bit. We want to move some of these modifiers so that instead of having the modifier on the detail like this, what we want to do is it talks about, we go edit and then cut, or we use Command X. So we want to cut this, and then we're going to go to the friend detail, and we're going to go to the form, and let's add this to the form. So press return, and then you can paste it by choosing edit and paste, or you press the Command V to paste it. So this way all of the modifiers are within the friend detail itself. If we want to see the navigation view, because right now we don't see this title and the way that it's displayed, if we want to see it in the preview, we can actually wrap the friend detail. So go ahead and right click, choose embed, and say navigation stack. And what it does is it shows the preview so that we can see what it would look like if it was in the application itself. So that's another way. The navigation stack just allows you to see the views that are modified, and you see all of these things like the title and then how it's displayed like that. Let's do the same thing for the movie list. So if I come over to the movie list, remember we are replacing this text so that we show the movie detail, and then we pass in the movie and we say movie. And then we're taking these modifiers and we press Command X, and we're going to go to the movie detail, and on the form we're going to paste, so Command V. Whoops, we lost our period there, so let's type that. And then in order to see that, yeah, we know. In order to see that, embed this in a navigation stack. So now we see the title and everything as expected. Let's go to the friend list, and we want to be able to add a friend. First, we need a function that will create a new friend for us. And so below the body, we want to add a function, and we'll say private func add friend. And here we're going to add the friend to the context. So context dot insert, and then we create a new friend, and the friend will have a name, and by default we're just going to say new friend, and then we'll edit that in the detail. So what's happening is, the way this works is we're creating a new friend, and then we're inserting it into the context. Now we need some way to where the user can press a button, do something that will call this method. So what we're going to do is use a toolbar, and we want a toolbar, and we'll add it to the end of the list, And so we're going to say dot toolbar and do the open curly brace. And the toolbar allows you to put content views, things above or below the main content of what's on the screen. And so in for our purposes, we're going to use a toolbar item, and we're going to have a button. And we're going to say button, and the title is add friend. And then we're going to use a system image. System image. Remember, I'm just pressing tab to do the autocomplete. So then we're going to call the plus. And then here, instead of doing the closure where we do the curly braces, we're actually going to pass in an action. And here we're going to say add friend. So notice in the UI, we've added a button. And when we press the button, it's going to call this method add friend. We can try it out by clicking the button, and then notice it adds a friend. And then, of course, you can click on the friend and edit their name. We're going to change this here in a little bit to make it a little smoother, but for now you can see how that works. So you press the button, it adds, calls the method add friend, it inserts a new friend into the context, because the context, remember, is bound to the view. When it updates, then it adds that person automatically. Okay, let's do the same thing on our movie list. So go to movie list, and at the end of the list, we want to say toolbar. Oh, we don't need that one. We just want toolbar and the curly brace. And then we want the toolbar item. Boy, my fingers are not hitting the right keys today. There we go. So toolbar item, and again, we have a button. First thing we want to do is create that method so that we can add a movie. So notice again, when you click at the end of the curly brace, you see how it highlights which one it is. So if I click on this one, that tells me this is this one at the body. So I want to go a few lines below. I want to say private func add movie. And then we're going to say context dot insert, and then we have a new movie. Whoops, M-O-V-I-E. And we're going to say title, press tab, is going to be new movie, and then release date is going to be dot now. That'll be the default. So when we add a new movie, it shows up with today's date, and then you can edit that. Now we can add the toolbar modifier at the end of the list, dot toolbar space, and then curly brace, and then inside that we'll have a toolbar item, and in that we will have a button, and it will be add movie, and then we'll use a system image, and we'll use a plus, and then the action will be the add movie method. So if we click on here, notice it adds a movie and it says new movie. And then of course you can click on that, edit things, and then go back. Remember on the button, remember we have this text and we actually don't see the text. Because we have a symbol representing the button, we don't actually have that. But it's important to use text, because if someone has the screen reader options, some accessibility options turned on, it will describe what they are seeing on the screen. And you always want to have your content annotated, meaning it has the name or text that can be read by the screen reader. So it's good practice to have that. So we have a way to add a movie and to add a friend. Next, we want to be able to delete. And so in our, we're still in the movie list. Let's add another method, private func, and we'll call this delete movies. And when we delete something from the array, we're actually using what's called an index set. And so this is going to expect it's called indexes, which is an index set. And then we have the opening curly brace. Let me scroll down here. What we'll do is we iterate over these index. In the indexes, you're going to have an array of items. And so we're going to say for index in indexes, which is what gets passed in. For each one of those, we're going to say context dot delete, and then we pass that reference. Pass that reference. How about if I spelled it right? Delete. And then we're going to pass in, we're going to say the movies array index. So what's happening here? When you call this method, we're taking advantage of some built-in delete and the methods that are built into the navigation stack and everything passes an index set. And so we take that, when you delete something, there's an index set for each item, and it passes it to us. And so we will then say for each index in this indexes set, we're going to delete it, and we pass, because we get the index, it's going to match the index of movies. So whatever the index is, so for example, if I were to delete this movie, this is 0, 1, 2. So this would be index number 2. And so that would get passed in. And then what it would say is delete index number 2 from the movies array. If we go up to the list and in the for each view, there's a modifier that says dot on delete. And when that gets called, we're going to say perform, we're going to say delete. Oh boy, my typing is, I'm doing great today. Delete movie, so press tab, and then it's going to call that with the indexes. That this on delete is a built-in method, and then it's going to call our function and pass in the right information. So if we come over here, and right now, in order to see the delete, now we can swipe and press delete, and then it removes it. Or if we swipe all the way across, then it deletes it. So we've turned on this on delete capability now inside of this for each block in our list. In order for this to be easier for people to use, we want to show an edit button. And if we go to our toolbar, we've already got an add movie button. Let's add another toolbar item, and we'll say toolbar item, and we will say edit button. And this is a built-in control that's available. And so now when we click edit, it turns it into edit mode, at which point you can click an item and then click delete. And the reason we do this is because not everybody is aware that they could swipe to delete, and this makes it more visually, explains it easier so they know, oh, I can click a button. Plus it makes it easier for people who may have disabilities that need to be able to press a button versus swiping. So this just makes it a better experience for everybody. All right, so we've got this implemented for our movie list. Let's do the same thing for our friend list. So the first thing we need to do is create a function called private func delete friends. And again, we're going to get some indexes, which is an index set. And then we're going to say for index in indexes, which means for each one of these, we're going to say context dot delete, and then we're going to say friends index. So again, what we're doing is when you go to delete, it will remove the index for that item that you had selected from the friends array. Now we can add the on delete method to the for each view. So we say on delete, and we're going to call delete friends index. And so I just tabbed to autocomplete that. And then we want to add a toolbar. So we'll say toolbar item, and we say edit button. Okay, let's try it out. So we click edit, and now we can delete our friend. I don't know why we deleted them, but hopefully we can add them again in the future. Right now we've got everything working in our preview, but in order for this to run properly in the simulator, we need to make an update to the Friends Favorite Movies app.swift file. We need to pass in a model container so that when you run this on the device, so we're going to say .model container for, and then we pass in an array of the movie.self and friend.self. So now, and this is going to throw an error, and the reason it throws an error is because we need to import SwiftData. So now that will work. So let's run this in the simulator, and we should be able to, now we have the ability to add friends or add a movie. So we can say new friend, and we can edit, and we can delete the friend as well. And then the same thing, we can add a movie and edit the movie. Let's clean this up so that it works a little better. Go ahead and press stop, and then one thing I noticed, you probably saw this as well, in our movie detail, sorry, not the movie detail, movie list, we're missing the navigation title. So here we have a navigation title for Friends, but on movie list, we're missing our navigation title. Navigation title, movies. So now we run it in the preview, it should show, there we go. We were missing that earlier. Right now the app has us creating a new person, or when we go to edit them, we add a new movie. It has this extra step where we have to make changes and then come back to it. We're going to use a modal interface, meaning a view that slides up and is presented on top of the content using what is called a sheet. And I said the word sheet. Okay, let's go to friend list. And the first thing we need to do is we need to keep track of who our new friend is. So if we go to the top, we're going to create a state variable. And remember, state variables are always private var new friend. And this is going to be an optional, meaning when we start, this is potentially doesn't exist. And so you put the question mark, which means that it could potentially contain information, or it could be nil. Next, let's change the way that we are adding a friend. And for our purposes, what we want is to come down to the add friend method, and we're going to say let new friend equal friend with a name, and it's going to be empty. And then we're going to insert this. Instead of creating a new friend here, we're going to say new friend. And then what we're doing is we're setting the new friend property, the state variable, we're setting it to the new friend that we created locally. Whenever you use the let keyword, you're creating a variable, and when you're inside a method, it's local to this method. So right now, this is named the same as this property up here, but we're not actually referencing that yet. What we're doing is we're creating a new friend. we're adding that new friend to the context, and then we're setting the state property that is also called new friend to the one we created. So that's why we use the keyword self. Now on the toolbar at the list, we're going to add a modifier called sheet. And inside the closure, actually we need to pass some information here. So we're going to say open parentheses item, and it's going to be, we're going to bind it to our new friend. And then here we're going to say friend in, and then we're going to pass this to our friend detail. And remember, the friend detail needs a friend, so we're going to pass in this one here. So when this toolbar gets created, so what happens is we're presenting, when we click the add button, what we're doing is we're presenting the friend detail with a new friend. And it's going to be the new friend that gets created here in the add friend method. So remember, we click the add button, it calls this method. At the same time, we're going to present this sheet, which is the friend detail with the information of an empty friend, so that immediately, instead of adding it to the list and then editing it, we're immediately going to see this, and now we can go ahead and edit. And so now we can say Brent, and then when you dismiss that, you can drag it down. And so now we've added that friend. What's happening behind the scenes is this is actually adding a friend to the list, but then we're immediately going to edit them, and then it updates it because we're using this binding, so that we pass in the new friend, and then that gets updated here. We can wrap the friend detail in a navigation stack, so that when we click add, we now see the title, so we know where we are in relation to this view. Let's do the same thing on the movie list. So let's go to our movie list. We need to create a state variable at state private var new movie of type movie. And remember, it's an optional because it will potentially be nil, and we want it to be created without having to pass anything to it yet. Then we need to change how we do the add movie. We say let new movie equal movie, and then title, which will be empty, and the date will be now. And then we delete this here, and we're going to insert the new movie that we just created. And then we're going to self.newMovie equals new movie. Then we trigger the sheet. Remember, we put it here under the toolbar, so we say dot sheet item, which is bound to the new movie. And then we have an open curly brace, and we say movie in, and then here we're calling movie detail movie, and we're passing in the movie, and then we're embedding that in navigation stack. Navigation stack. Whoops, how about I spell it right? Stack. Okay. Now, what is happening, the tutorial says that when this value changes, it gets created, then the sheet is shown. So again, the order of events is I click the plus button, it calls the add movie, and the add movie creates this new movie and sets the self.newMovie. Self.newMovie is bound to this sheet, and when that becomes has a value, it's no longer nil, then the sheet is displayed, at which point I can change this, and so I can say Star Trek the movie, and I don't remember the date, it was a long time ago, and then we can swipe down, and then that gets added, updates. We dismiss the sheet and it updates the value because it was they're bound to each other, and so now that gets updated. Let's add some more controls so it's a little easier to work with. So right now when we click the add button, we're presented with the sheet, but then in order to finish I have to swipe down, and again that's not the easiest or most intuitive way. So to fix that, let's go to the friend detail. Let's fix it in the friend detail first. On the form, we want to add a toolbar. And so we're going to say toolbar. And inside the toolbar, we'll have a toolbar item. And we're going to place this. We're going to use a method called placement. And we're going to say dot confirmation action. And we're going to use a button called save, and temporarily let's just leave it empty like this. And so now we have this save button that we can see here on the top corner. In order to, when we save this, we want to dismiss this, and there's an environment variable. And so if I come up here and I say at environment, and I do a backslash dot dismiss, and so this is built-in functionality, and so we call it private var dismiss. It can automatically dismiss the modal, and so we come down here to the button and then we call dismiss, and so this is a method that's built in for us. We want to add another button which will be a cancel button. So when this is presented, we see the save button, but then maybe we don't want to create a new friend or create a new movie. We want to click cancel, and so we want to add another toolbar item. So we say toolbar item, and its placement is going to be dot cancellation action. If I press tab and then I go ahead and press return, remember it converts it to a closure. So now I can add my code. So here what happens is I need to create a button, and it's going to be a cancel button, and inside the action for that button, why are you complaining? Oh, I typed I typed square bracket instead of a curly bracket. Let's fix that. Okay, curly bracket, curly brace. And then inside the button, when they click cancel, we want to delete this friend from the context. When this view is presented modally, like we showed in the sheet, we've already created a friend, and so we're editing the one we just created. Well, when we click cancel, what we need to do is actually delete that friend. So I want to say context.delete, and it'll be the friend that is represented, and then we can call dismiss, which is the same method which will dismiss this. In order to see the context, we have to add it as a variable. So up here, remember, we're going to say at environment, and then we say \modal context private var context. And as a result, we still need to import SwiftData. Import SwiftData. And now all the errors go away. So again, when you press the cancel button, you're deleting the friend that had already been created, and then we dismiss the sheet, then how it's presented. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the movie list. movie detail. And remember in the movie detail, so we need two variables. So we need at environment and then / dismiss. So we want the dismiss function, which is private var dismiss. And then we want an environment and the / modal context, which is private var context. And then we need to import SwiftData. And then we add a toolbar. So at the end of the form, we're saying .toolbar. Inside our toolbar, we're going to have a toolbar item. And we'll say placement is going to be .confirmation action. And then we have a button called save. And then we call the dismiss method. Then we want to add another toolbar item. And its placement, if you press tab, the placement is going to be .cancellation action. And then if I press tab again and then press return, now we get the closure. And then here we're going to say context.delete movie and dismiss. Oh wait, my bad. Let's embed this in a button that's called cancel. And so there we go. So now we have a cancel button and a save button. Now, the final thing we need to do is we need to update this so that we are showing these buttons only when we are creating a new item. So if you go back to your content view, and if we take a look at this, if I press the plus button, I'm presented with a modal view that presents this friend detail where I can then create a new friend or I can cancel. And then you can also get to the friend detail if you click on an existing friend. Well, right now it's showing the cancel and the save button, but this is unnecessary. What we're doing is we're editing an existing friend, not a new friend. So we need to hide these buttons. Same thing happens when we add a new movie. We want to hide these buttons based on how we're accessing it. So there's two ways to get to this friend detail. And we need to change the code so that when we edit an existing one, it looks a certain way. But if we add a new one, it looks a different way. So to fix that, let's go to our friend detail. And let's add another variable. And it's going to be a constant called isNew. And we're going to set it as a Boolean. Now we get some errors and we need to fix this by using our own initializer. So right now, whenever you have properties assigned to a view, then it's going to expect those values to be passed in. In order for us to use this where we don't need to go through and edit every time we pass in friend detail, we can make this an optional value. What we do is we create a custom initializer. So if we type init, now we don't want to do this suggested init because it's going to pass in information for the dismiss and the context. We don't want that. We only want to pass in information for the friend. And so that'll be a type friend, comma, and isNew, which is a type Boolean, and then we're going to say equals false. So then here we're saying self.friend equals friend and self.isNew equals isNew. What this does is allows us to pass in a default value. so that when this view gets loaded, it's already going to have a value for is new. That way, we don't have to worry about passing is new on every time we reference the friend detail. It also allows us to only pass it in if we really want it to be different. And we'll do that here in a second. But this, now we can reference this value without any errors. Based on this value, we want to display the title, the navigation title. It's either going to be new friend or friend. And so to do that, we use the ternary conditional. And you remember we've seen this before, where we say is new, and then we use a question mark and then a space. And if it is true, we're going to say new friend, and then we use a colon. Otherwise, we're going to use friend. Make sure you have the quotes on those. So this is a ternary, meaning it has three parts. And the first part is the evaluation, or we're checking, is this true or is this false? And so if this is true, then we show the first value. Otherwise, we show the second value. So now, when we create a new friend, it'll say new friend for the title. Otherwise, it's going to show friend. We can actually have a second preview in order to see this in action. So go down here, and underneath the first preview, say pound preview, and then we'll give this a name, and we'll say new friend. And inside that, we have a navigation stack, and then we say friend detail, and we can actually, I'm using the arrow keys, we can actually tab and select that and say sample data dot share dot friend, and then we can actually pass in true for this value. So now notice up here on the top, we have two different previews. So we have this one that says new friend. If we click it, then now we're seeing the content as if we had passed in true. So now, obviously, you guess what we're going to do next. We're going to fix it so that we show these or hide these based on whether it is new. So go back to the friend detail view preview, and now let's update this. In the toolbar, we want to say if is new and put an opening curly brace, and then if I come down here and I press return and then I do the closing curly brace, it automatically fixes it. Notice what happens. If it is new, then it shows them, and so if we click new friend, notice now we see them. And if it's not, if it's an existing friend, then we don't see these toolbars. Now when we go to our friend list and we navigate in this sheet, here we can actually pass in comma is new and say true. So now when the sheet is presented, it is going to be is new is true, so it'll show those controls. And then if we click in here, it'll show friend detail. Here we're not passing in is new. And so now if we click add, notice we see the controls. I can go ahead and click cancel. And if I click on an existing friend, then we don't see those. Sweet. The other thing we need to do is when we present this sheet, we actually need to turn off and at the navigation stack, add a modifier that says interactive dismiss disabled. And we want to set that because we don't want them to dismiss the view without clicking a button. We want them to have to click a button. So when I pull on it, it doesn't dismiss it. I have to click a button. That way, we don't get into a weird state with the data that gets created. So again, now I can click cancel, and we're good. Okay, now we just have to do the same thing for the movie detail. So we go to the movie detail, we add a property that is let is new, and it's a bool. And then remember, we create our custom initializer, so we say init, and we want to say movie is movie, and then is new, is a Boolean or bool, and then it equals false, so that we have a default value. And then here we say self.movie equals movie, and self.isNew equals is new. Let's create our second preview. So we come down here and we say pound preview, and then we give it a title, new movie. And then we have a navigation stack. And inside that we have a movie detail, and we say movie, and we use the arrow key tab, and we say sample data.shared.movie, and then we press tab and we say true. Now we can see the behavior. So I'm going to switch to this preview. Let's come up here and let's change the navigation title. We're going to use that ternary operator, and again we're going to say is new, and then a question mark, space, and then the first value is new movie, and then a colon, and the second value, again make sure you have quotes. So now it says new movie because it is true. Next we hide the toolbars if it is new, so I want to click above and say if is new, then we show the toolbars, and whoops, go from there. And now if we click to the movie detail, notice the toolbars are hidden, because again it's based on whether it's a new movie or not. Then let's go to the movie list, and we want to change on the sheet. We pass in comma is new and set that to true. And then on the sheet itself we say dot interactive dismissal disabled, so that they can't do that. Hold on, we put it on the navigation stack. Wait, let's move that. Command X, put it on the navigation stack. There we go. All right, let's check this out. So we click a new friend. We see our controls. We say new friend, JSON, and then we click save. And now we have JSON. We click new friend and we click cancel, and we don't add anybody. If I click on JSON, I can edit, but I don't have the cancel or save buttons because we're using the same view, but we're hiding the toolbar. And the same thing for the movie. We see the controls, and we click on a movie, we don't see the controls. Sweet. So that's everything for this video. Let's go to our let's see where we're at and answer the questions. So we'll scroll down. This was a lot. We got through a lot today. Wrapping a view in navigation that displays navigation title if one exists. I'm going to say true. Yep, navigation stack puts its contents in a navigation hierarchy and adds a navigation bar. What is necessary to display items provided in a dot toolbar modifier at the top of the screen? Well, we use the tool, no, add a navigation bar, no, ensure the view is enclosed in a navigation stack, either current view or parent view. Oh, okay. Use the toolbar hidden, no, we don't need that. And navigation bar, no. So I think it's this first one. Yep, navigation bar displays content at the top of the screen. A dot toolbar modifier adds items to it. How can you control the presentation of a modal sheet? Use the sheet modifier, pass a binding, then assign a value. Use a sheet inside an if else, use a sheet view, pass a binding. Wait a minute. Use a sheet view and pass. Oh, yeah, it's the modifier. That's what we want. You display a sheet by making it dependent on the presence of a value. Sweet. Great job. You did it. Thank you for sticking with me on this one. This is, again, another long one, but there was a lot of information. Hopefully this was helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your parents, tell your loved ones, and I will see you in the next video.